1-0, baby. Undefeated. That's right. Your Sacramento Kings do not have a championship hangover.
Albeit a Summer League championship.
That's okay. No hangovers on this channel. What's up, Kings fans? Welcome back to Royal Rebounds TV. This is the Royal Report with Calvin and Barry, a Sacramento Kings sports talk show. That's right, ESPN doesn't talk about us enough, so we got to do it here instead. I want to welcome you all back. We are excited to start the 75th season of NBA basketball. Tonight is opening night for your Sacramento Kings at home against the Utah Jazz. We'll break down that game and a couple other interesting topics surrounding your Sacramento Kings. So make sure you stay tuned.
Yeah, thank you for tuning in. Barry and I are very happy to be back for another season of Kings basketball, the 75th season of NBA basketball. And we're excited to bring you the first episode of Season 2 of the Royal Report. Please don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Make sure you click that notification cowbell so that you get updated when we put out new videos like this. On today's show, new coaching staff additions, new look defense, and where in the world is Marvin Bagley? But we begin, as we always do, with some league news.
This just in, Ben Simmons has met with the team today, Coach Doc Rivers, and spoke with his teammates and said that he has a mental issue playing. He doesn't feel mentally well to be himself and play fully on the court. So the next step is he will be interviewed by some medical professionals and wait to hear from them. It's an interesting turn of events. As you all know, there's been rumors swirling about Ben Simmons potentially getting traded. It came out this week that Daryl Morey said that this process could last up to 4 years. That's as long as Ben is under contract, meaning that no resolution is in sight, unfortunately. But speaking of no resolution in sight, where is Kyrie Irving, Calvin?
Not on the basketball court. Vaccinations have been one of the hottest topics in professional sports this year during a pandemic. That comes as no surprise. Kyrie Irving has been the highest profile player in the NBA to openly come out and say that he will not receive the vaccine. As most of you know, in New York State, you are required, if you play basketball for the NBA, to be vaccinated in order to be on the court for both practices and home games. There was a lot of controversy early on in the year, or question marks, whether or not the Nets would try to continue to move on with Irving as a part of the team, where he would only be available for road games. Of course, not road games in Madison Square Garden against the Knicks. But as the season started, head coach Steve Nash and GM Sean Marks both decided that it was better for the team to move on without Irving until he complies with the vaccination mandate. This leaves the Nets one of their big three down and has a lot of people wondering, will they have enough to be the heavy favorite to win the NBA Finals as they have been coming into this season?
Yeah, moral victory last week with them stating that the private practice facility, you didn't need to be vaccinated to practice. So there was potential that Kyrie Irving could practice with the team, play road games. But the team quickly made a decision, decided that he will not be a member of the team until he's ready to play full-time. It is a very interesting mandate, I have to say, as we saw Bradley Beal play in Madison Square Garden this week. He is unvaccinated, so it's different rules for residents of New York as opposed to non-residents. All right, we want to talk here about the Golden State Warriors. They are leading the league right now, 2-0. They're in the number 1 seed, and they have looked phenomenal. Steph Curry on Tuesday night had his first career triple-double since 2016. He followed that up with a wonderful performance last night, 45 points, 8 3-pointers, and 2 rebounds shy of another triple-double.
Yeah, Steph just continues to amaze. He's picking up right where he left off last season, where he had to do all the heavy lifting for the Warriors en route to their play-in tournament appearance. He seems to be better than ever, and the Warriors are winning games despite not having James Wiseman, Klay Thompson, or Jonathan Kuminga early on in the season. Steph was also a perfect 9 of 9 in the first quarter, scored 25 points in that game last night for the Warriors as well. Enough league news. We'll be right back to talk about your Sacramento Kings, and we'll give you our Kings week cap when we return.
Welcome back. 1-0 for your Sacramento Kings after defeating the Portland Trail Blazers on Wednesday night in Portland, 124-121, capped off by a huge performance by Harrison Barnes. 8 3-pointers, career high in threes, career high in points. The Kings played great defense in the first half, only allowing 49 points. However, they gave up 121 points for the game. Luke Walton commented after the game that he was not a fan of the defense played in the second half, and they still had some improvements to make. I know Calvin and I had both discussed the defense during a live this week. We thought that there was much improvement. Although it didn't show on the scoreboard, the team played much better team defense, and we got to look at this new, smaller lineup with multiple guards on the floor at all times. Pretty incredible, right, Cal?
Yeah, overall it was a great first win for the Kings on the road against a tough Portland team. This is a Portland Trail Blazers team that's the only Western Conference team to have made the playoffs in 8 consecutive seasons, so they're always going to be tough with one of the best backcourts in all the land with Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum. Lillard had an off night, but he was held down a little bit by off night Davion Mitchell as well as Maurice Harkless, who drew most of the night assignment on Lillard. C.J. McCollum had a huge second half, kind of sparked the Trailblazers' run to get back into the game. We'll talk about the defense more as well as Marvin Bagley, but huge performance, like you mentioned, from Harrison Barnes, 36 points. In that third quarter, when the Portland Trail Blazers were making their run back into the game, he hit big three after big three to sort of thwart the efforts that Portland was using to get back into the game. Really, really had an amazing performance. And De'Aaron Fox, you can't say enough about him as well. The star of this team came out and played fantastic. We're going to talk about him a little bit later as well, but it was great to see the Kings get a big win on the road to start the season off. And sort of a very entertaining, high-stakes fourth quarter, just like last year's season opener that we saw against the Denver Nuggets.
Yeah, the Kings controlled pretty much this entire game. They almost fell apart in the fourth quarter, unfortunately, with some, questionable calls by the referees, a fumbled pass by Tyrese Halliburton, and some big three-pointers by C.J. McCollum. But fortunately for us Kings fans, the Kings were able to pull it out. Big news, though, Marvin Bagley was not in the opening night rotation, which was huge. It was huge, Calvin. I know they failed to negotiate a contract extension on Monday before the deadline, making Marvin a restricted free agent. Many Kings fans anticipated this happening. However, the following day, Marvin's agent came out saying that the Kings informed them that he was not going to be in the opening day rotation, which was a very, very puzzling move, considering he had a great offseason. He had a great summer league and training camp. Doug Christie was brought in that's been specifically working with him, and he seems to be healthy. So, Calvin, that just gives us the question, what is going on with Marvin, and why is he not playing?
It's a very good question, and I am not sure what the answer is. I was really surprised to hear that he was going to be left out of the rotation altogether. I expected him to start. I wasn't sure how many minutes he was going to play. You know, he's averaged about 25 minutes a game for his career, and Luke Walton definitely is loving these smaller lineups with 3 guards or Maurice Harkless alongside Harrison Barnes. So I kind of wouldn't have been surprised if that was the lineup he chose to go with late in the game. But there could be a lot of different reasons why this is happening. Coach Walton did say that he had 12 or 13 guys on this team that he felt comfortable playing, but they were going to probably play only 8 or 9 consistently. I still expected Bagley to be one of those 8 or 9 guys. But this also could be a very matchup-dependent game as well. Outside of Yusuf Nurkic, the Blazers are not exactly a big team, and Coach Walton was definitely focused on putting out a lineup that would be focused on stopping those 2 guards, right? That was their main point of emphasis, take Damian Lillard away, which they did. He did not make a 3 for the entire game. Part of that was the Kings defense, and part of that was him just having a tough night. C.J. McCollum had a fantastic night, but it was not easy. Davion Mitchell made it hard for him. Tyrese Halliburton made it hard for him. So there could be a lot of things, a lot of reasons behind this. Maybe Marvin isn't as healthy as we really think he is, or the team is letting us believe he is. And maybe it's just time for the Kings to move on. I know Luke Walton is really excited about these new young guys and this guard-heavy lineup, so it could just be time for the Kings to move on from Marvin Bagley.
And, Marvin is still is a young guy as well, but, he's not known for his defensive presence on the floor. This team is trying to rebuild. It's trying to create a defensive-minded culture, but it could also be matchup specific, like you mentioned. Portland is a smaller team. Tonight they're playing the Jazz. The Jazz is a much bigger team. Do you expect to see Marvin Bagley tonight?
Well, just as I was surprised to see him left out of the game on Wednesday, I would be surprised to see him play tonight. I think that they had a great performance. They started off the game really, really well. And I just kind of get the feeling, listening to Coach Walton talk about this team, about how happy he is with the defensive rotation and different combinations and lineups that they can use. I would be surprised to see him play tonight.
All right, let's talk about De'Aaron Fox here. I know it's only been one game, but he's averaging 27-8 with a block per game. What do you want to say about De'Aaron in this new look and 10 extra pounds of muscle he gained this offseason?
Well, that has been the big topic of De'Aaron Fox this offseason, is his physical appearance and his physical strength. And you finally got to see it in action the other night against the Portland Trailblazers. One of my favorite plays of the game was him driving in hard on Robert Covington, who is no small man himself. We're talking a 6'5", 230-ish pound man, and De'Aaron just threw him out of the way like a rag doll on his way to a layup. So you can totally see the difference in De'Aaron Fox's ability and his body this year, and I think you're going to see the biggest difference in his game in terms of getting to the free throw line. We talked about it a lot in our podcast after the game. 7 of 10 at the line. He did most of that in the first half. He, in the second quarter, pretty much lived at the free throw line. And this is going to be a huge area of emphasis for me. He talked in the preseason about becoming a more efficient player. One of the easiest ways to do that is get to the free throw line and knock down free throws. If he can get 8 to 10 free throw attempts a game, the Kings are going to be in a very good position.
Yeah, one thing about, gaining some muscle and especially gaining enough where everyone is noticing is it's a huge confidence booster. When people are telling you you look good, you look bigger, you look stronger, you play better. And we could tell De'Aaron Fox's confidence was off the charts. 2 early threes in the game. I know he ended up shooting, 8 threes total and only made 2, but you could see a huge confidence boost in his shooting and him driving to the basket. The only thing that really bothered me about this game was 5 turnovers. And, that happens when you're driving more to the basket. You're not getting calls. The ball's getting knocked off of you and going out of bounds. But I guess that's my only criticism of De'Aaron Fox in this opening game is 5 turnovers. I'd love to see that cut down. But, Calvin, if I were to ask you season predictions for De'Aaron Fox, points, assists, where's he going to be?
I think it's going to be very close to the numbers he put up on the other night against Portland. I would expect somewhere in the 26 to 28.5 or so points per game range. I really think the free throws are going to be the key for him. Even when he has nights like he had where he didn't shoot particularly well, you're still going to end up with 26 or 27 points because of your free throw line attempts. 8, 9 rebounds, 8 assists, something like that. 7 rebounds, 8 assists. Not quite a triple-double, but I really believe those are the types of numbers that you're going to see for De'Aaron Fox, not just for this year, but probably for the next 4 or 5 years.
And hopefully this guides him to that very first elusive all-star appearance. Make sure you guys all vote before the deadline. We want to get De'Aaron into that all-star game this year, 100%. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back, and we're going to break down some new additions to the coaching staff.
Welcome back to the Royal Report. The Sacramento Kings have a new look on the court, and it's not just in the players themselves. A lot of new coaches on the staff this year for Coach Walton, who said before the season he wasn't exactly happy about all the turnover on the coaching staff. He would like that to be more consistent moving forward. However, he is very excited about the individuals that they've brought on to this team and this staff. And they've got some big shoes to fill, but big personalities as well. And I think they're doing a great job so far.
Yeah, I totally agree. At least they had some consistency keeping Coach Walton, keeping Alvin Gentry. All good there. Want to welcome Mike Longobardi and also Doug Christie, the coaching staff. Also, we were joined by Bobby Jackson. He is now the official head coach of the Stockton Kings, and he helped lead this Sacramento Kings Summer League team to a championship. I know he's going to have a huge impact, and I see him only getting more involved as the years go on with the Sacramento Kings day-to-day coaching staff. Calvin, what are you expecting from him and Doug Christie this season?
I'm expecting big things. Obviously, Doug Christie is the star of the show just because he's such a huge public figure within the Sacramento community and within the Kings franchise. But it still can't go understated how much he should help this team, not just with his knowledge of defense and of basketball, but his energy, his passion. That's been one of the big things that a lot of players I've heard mention since he's been around them on a day-to-day basis. He's a huge resource for them to draw off of. And really all these guys that have been brought in, there's a lot of people that we probably won't mention much, but are going to have huge impacts on this team. I think that the Kings really, Coach Walton and Monty McNair both went out and their focus was to get basketball guys, people who have been around the game for a long time. A guy like Stacey Augmon is one of those people that I don't think will get talked about much, but it has a wealth of knowledge, was a great player, and played on some fantastic teams in his career. All guys that I think can really help this Kings squad.
Yeah, I think the goal this season is defense. So bringing in Doug Christie, a great defender for your Kings back in the 2000s when they were competitive. You hear him talk about it when he was a play-by-play announcer. Defense is important. It needs to be the forefront of this team, and they need to build around that. So speaking of defense, Calvin, I know we talked last season about giving up over 120 points per game. The Kings were on record to have the worst defense in NBA history. They were able to win this first game, but they did give up over 121 points after only giving up 49 in the first half. So what were some defensive adjustments that you think needed to be made in the second half? And how do you feel about this defense for the rest of the season?
I feel very good about the defense moving forward. It was the first game, and this game was a tale of two halves. They played fantastic defense in the first half, but also Portland just missed shots, right? In the second half, C.J. McCollum comes out, he gets hot, hits a bunch of threes, and they start getting to the free throw line. The biggest adjustment that Portland made from the first half to the second half was they said, okay, our threes aren't falling. We got to get to the basket. Damian Lillard made a point of that, and that really started to break down the interior of the Sacramento Kings defense, which left guys like Norman Powell, Nasir Little, and even C.J. McCollum open for three when they didn't have open looks in the first half. I loved the energy of the Kings defense in the first half. Their closeouts were fantastic. Nobody really got a wide open look from three, and they were moving together well as a team. It's to be expected that there's some things that they have to clean up still. We're talking about a team that's not known for their defense first and foremost, and now they're trying to make a name for themselves. But I thought individually they played some great defense as well. Davion Mitchell was huge late in the game, matching up against Damian Lillard, which is no easy task. And I loved the Kings' strategy of starting Maurice Harkless on Damian Lillard early in the game. They threw a lot of different looks at him, big bodies, little bodies, physicality. All the right ingredients were there. It's now just a matter of doing it consistently on a night-to-night basis.
Yeah, we talked about how this is Luke Walton's first official full training camp. 2 years ago, they went to India. Last year with COVID, they weren't allowed to do the full training camp and everyone get involved. they played great defense in the first half of that game. So, watching them play full court pressure, everybody being involved and playing in such a short rotation, I have to think that maybe they were a little tired by the time the second half came around, and that could be, what allowed them to give up, was it 72 points in the second half? So I'm happy with what I saw from this defense. I love the rotations. I love the communication. I love what the coaching staff is doing. I just think that they need to do it a little bit more. They need more time. They need to get, I guess, in better shape, which is hard to say because they all look like they were in great shape. But it's more of being able to last for the entire 48 minutes and potentially further. If Dame Lillard hit that three that he was wide open late in the game, we could have very well gone to overtime. And who knows what happens in overtime, right?
Yes, yes, absolutely. Thankfully, that did not happen. And, also defense is more than just playing individually great defense. You have to secure the rebound at the end, right? They gave up a bunch of offensive rebounds, especially in that third quarter when the Blazers made their run back into the game. If they were able to take 2 or 3 of those away, we're probably talking about a different story. Maybe the Blazers only score 111, 110 points, and it ends up being a double-digit victory, like the Kings were leading by double digits for most of the game. So there's just a few things to clean up, like you said, communication, consistency. This was the first game. So as they continue to do this in practice day in and day out, defense is the first thing that they work on in practice now. It's the forefront of the organization. I expect it to get better and better as the season goes along.
And you know what they say, defense wins championships.
That's right.
So let's talk about playoffs. Right now, I know it's only been one game. Sacramento Kings are in the 7th spot. Warriors are in the 1st spot. So with an added defense, some new players, some additions to the coaching staff, and a full season, do you think the Kings will be making the playoffs this season, Cal?
I do think the Kings will be making the playoffs this season. It's not going to be easy. We all know how difficult the Western Conference is. I said before the season starts, if the Kings don't at least make the play-in tournament, I will be very, very surprised. To me, they are easily one of the 10 best teams in the Western Conference, and I think they could very well slide themselves into that top 8 spot as well. So can they make it all the way to 7 and avoid a play-in tournament? Only time will tell. There's a lot of good teams in the Western Conference. This team is absolutely talented enough to make the playoffs. They're ready. They're hungry. It's time. It's time for them to make the playoffs.
We all know about the drought, over 15 years missing the playoffs. I feel like the law of averages finally have to catch up sometime, and the Kings will be in that spot. There's been some great improvements by the star player in De'Aaron Fox. They were able to re-sign a big center in Rashawn Holmes, brought in some new guys. There's a new energy. You hear from the players. They say the culture is changing. Luke Walton, this is his 3rd year. There's some consistency at the head and assistant coaching positions. I have to say the Kings are going to make the playoffs this year. I'm really excited. I hope it happens. We'll be right back, and we're jumping into Cowbell Questions.
Welcome back. It is time for Cowbell Questions, the first episode of the year. First time we get to ring the cowbell. This is one of my favorite parts of the show because we get to hear from you, the fans. Thank you for your submissions this week. If you have a question that you'd like Barry and I to answer on a future show of the Royal Report, please write it down in the comment screen underneath this video. Hashtag it Cowbell Questions, and we will do our best to answer it. Let's get the first one today from the announcer.
Will Marvin Bagley make it to the trade deadline?
Well, I think that's a tough question. Will he make it to the trade deadline? I'm assuming that means will he be on the team up until the trade deadline? Maybe if he will be traded at the deadline or not, I am not sure. But I think he will be with the team for at least the next few months. Monte McNair said that this is the team he's sticking with for now. There hasn't been much interest or players offered for a guy like Marvin Bagley, but we all know what happens with drama, with parents, with coaches and agents getting involved. If Marvin becomes a distraction for this team, I think they'll either suspend him or try and get him out as quickly as possible. But winning cures everything. If Marvin gets some minutes tonight, if he plays well, if the Kings are winning some basketball games, I expect him to stick around at least for a few more months.
Yeah, I agree. I expect him to be there through the trade deadline. You said it to me, the most important part in this is interest. We heard from Marvin's agent that they've been requesting or trying for a trade for over a year now, and it just hasn't happened. We've also heard that the Kings were actively shopping him, looking for trade partners, and there really just wasn't much interest from anybody around the league. So I don't expect that to change now, especially if Marvin is continuing to sit on the bench. But there are things that could change the answer of this question, and some of them aren't even related to the Kings franchise. Injuries, for example, could present a situation where another team has a player go down and they're looking for a plug-and-play guy right away. They see a guy like Bagley who is on the bench and is, for the most part, as we believe, healthy. So that could, force a situation where somebody is, I don't want to say desperate because that makes it sound like Marvin Bagley is useless, but you could get into a situation where another team is looking for a power forward, and Marvin Bagley would be probably one of the first places that you would look for a reasonable deal.
Next question.
Where will the Kings rank in defense this season?
Well, this is the million-dollar question, right? This is what everybody wants to know. The Kings, to me, are going to be a better defensive team. Where exactly are they going to rank in defense? I would love to see them in the middle of the pack, somewhere 14 to 12-ish. If they could get that high, there's no doubt in my mind that this is a playoff team and probably not even a play-in tournament team. This is a top 7 team. Are they going to be able to make that big of an improvement? That's a tall task. They have the right kind of pieces right now. Like we've mentioned, the culture seems to be changing. Defense is the focus, but defense can be the focus. It can be something that you talk about all the time. You still have to go out there and do it. The effort is where the Kings are going to make that leap. So a realistic projection, I would say probably somewhere in the high teens, maybe 19 to 17, something like that.
Wow. I'm going to disagree with you, Calvin. I feel like they brought in the right guys in the coaching staff in Doug Christie. You look at a guy like Luke Walton, his first year in L.A. with the Lakers. They were not a great defensive team. They improved every year. It helps having a guy like LeBron James, bringing in a guy like Rondo that does help your defense. But I feel like this team has all the pieces. It has the right players. It has the right coaching staff. It's just a matter of putting it all together. And I think that's going to happen this season. So I expect the Kings to be in the top half, maybe 13, 14, potentially 15 in defense this year.
I'd love to see that happen. Let's remember, though, you're going from almost dead last in defense last year. So even if they were to go all the way to 19, that's a big improvement. That's a lot of numbers to jump, but hopefully it is higher than that. Next question.
Who is the second best player on this Kings?
Wow, this is a tough question. As much as I would like to say Tyrese Halliburton, or as a lot of people want to say Davion Mitchell, I'd love to say Marvin Bagley, but I think it's clear we saw on Wednesday night Harrison Barnes is the second best player on this team. He played like the best player on this team on Wednesday night. Career high 8 3-pointers. He's just Mr. Consistency. He's there. He's putting in the hard work. You never hear any complaints from him, and he's always ready to go. So I think the second best player on this team is Harrison Barnes.
Well, I'm going to agree with you, and I don't think that it's that big of a stretch at all or even that close. Harrison Barnes, to me, is maybe even 1B on this team, not necessarily number 2. He is such a great player, so smooth, does so many different things well, and has few weaknesses. And as we saw the other night, if he's going to be hitting threes like that, he could very well be the best player on this team on any given night. So he is such a valuable piece on this team, and to me, easily is the second best player.
Good job not trading him in the trade deadline last year, Monty. Huge move in keeping him. Happy to have HB. Next question.
Mark Jones or Kyle Draper?
All right, we may have our first ever repeat question on the Royal Report. This was brought up last year. It's a tough debate. Mark Jones or Kyle Draper. I think most Kings fans probably would say that they like Mark Jones better. He's been, I'm not sure, doing it longer. Probably, in my guess, would be somebody doing it longer just because of the position that he's in the NBA. Very, very well-respected guy around the league. Very high energy. A human thesaurus, as I said on the podcast the other night. He's always throwing out new vocabulary words during his broadcast, and he's very well liked all around the league. I do want to give a shout out to Kyle Draper, though. The guy does a tremendous job when he has to fill in for Mark Jones. As somebody who wanted to be a sports broadcaster at one point in their life, maybe even still does, and knows how difficult this is, how you have to wait in line for so long and put in all the hard work and be ready when your name's called. I give kudos to Kyle Draper for always bringing it when he is on the broadcast. So,
yeah, I've seen a lot of hate for Kyle this week in the forums online. But, he's in a tough position. There's a ton of turnaround in this media staff. They welcome newcomers like Morgan Reagan, who was with Stockton Kings before. Matt Barnes is now doing post-game show. Katie Christensen-Hunter moved up. So, everyone's been put in a kind of a difficult position. But personally, I like Mark Jones. Who?
Mark Jones.
Mark Jones. I love him. I love the energy. I love the personality. I'm excited to see on Sunday's game against the Warriors how him and Katie will bounce things off of each other. No hate towards Kyle. You do a great job too. Just personal preference. Kyle Draper. Sorry.
That's all the time we have for Cowbell Questions. Thank you again for your submissions. We're ringing the bell on this segment. When we come back, we're going to wrap up the show, and we'll look ahead to an exciting next week of Kings basketball.
Three games this week. Tonight, we have the home opener against the Utah Jazz. Then on Sunday, against the Golden State Warriors. And then next week, on the road against the Phoenix Suns. Calvin, let's talk a little bit about this game tonight. I know we talked about how big the Utah Jazz were. They were number one in the league last season in a ton of different categories: three-point shooting, defense, led by great guard play, Donovan Mitchell, and a big man in Rudy Gobert, who shut down the NBA but did not win Defensive Man of the Year.
Yes, that is
How are you
correct.
feeling about this game?
Well, this is going to be a tough one. I mean, the Jazz, like you mentioned, were number one in a lot of categories, but the most important category they were number one in last year is wins. They had the best record in the entire league, and they played like it all season long. Brought back Mike Conley, which was a huge, huge deal for the Jazz. And we talked about how difficult it was to defend the pick and roll against Portland the other night. Well, they better be ready for a steady dose of pick and roll with Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell. The Jazz love to operate out of that. Mitchell is one of the best pick and roll players in the game because of his ability to hit from the outside and get to the basket and elevate over the top. And the Jazz are a tremendous three-point shooting team as well. So it's going to be a lot of the same pick and roll, spread the floor, and find guys in the corner for threes. The Kings are really going to have their hands full defensively.
Yeah, we talked about it last season. One of the Kings' biggest weaknesses was three-point defense. We saw it late in the Portland game. Once Portland started getting to the basket and moving the ball more and more, they had a bunch of guys open from three-point range, and C.J. McCollum was able to take advantage. I'm really happy this is a home game. Utah's a tough place to play. There's going to be a lot of energy in the building tonight, a lot of excited Kings fans. Montel Jordan is doing the halftime show. I'm really excited to see some Mitchell on Mitchell crime. I want to see Davion guarding Donovan Mitchell. I think that's going to be exciting. And then also whether we're going to see Marvin Bagley play tonight. As we mentioned, it's a lot bigger team, so we got to play bigger.
Yeah. And if you're going to the games tonight, remember to wear your Buddy Hield jersey because Buddy is going to break the record tonight for all-time three-point field goals made in a Sacramento Kings uniform. We look forward to seeing that as well. Yeah, they're playing Donovan Mitchell. Yeah.
Davion is playing Donovan.
They're both in this game.
Yeah. All right. So 3 tough games here. On Sunday night, they are playing the undefeated Warriors, 2-0. They're the top of the league right now, and Steph Curry is playing incredible. Klay Thompson, we still haven't seen him. Still rehabbing, still getting better back on the court. This will be an exciting game. It's another home game, so good for your Sacramento Kings. But it'll be interesting to see how this 3-guard lineup deals with this Warriors squad. The Warriors have been playing smaller, not having James Wiseman on the court, but exciting game.
Yeah, this is the gauntlet that is the Western Conference. Every night is going to be a really, really tough matchup. And these are great tests early on for this Kings defense to see just how much they're improving, on a day-to-day or night-to-night basis.
And then next week against the Phoenix Suns. They made the finals last year. They laid an egg in their first game and got whooped. I know Chris Paul's getting a little bit older. They got some drama surrounding DeAndre Ayton. But Phoenix is a great team. It's going to be in Phoenix, so it will be the Kings' official second game on the road this season. But they beat them in the preseason. I think the Kings can do it again. I really do.
They certainly can win all of these games. It's going to be a really tall task to do that, but they are certainly capable of winning all 3 of these games. You think they do? Are they going 3-0?
As a Kings fan, I gotta say 3-0 in these games. I would be really ecstatic to do this show next week at 4-0. But don't forget, we do the Royal Rebounds podcast every game, after the game, post game live. So make sure you guys join us for that. We have a good time. We drink some beers. We interact with you, the fans, and we just have a blast talking Kings basketball, right, Cal?
We always do. That is for sure. Thanks for watching, you guys.
Thanks again for joining us on the second season, episode 1 of the Royal Report. We have a lot of fun doing this show, so thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and we'll see you all in the next time. Go Kings.
Go Kings.